and welcome to part 1 of a 2-part series going over the basics of modding for FS25 starting from scratch. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and picked a simple model that we're going to be tracing here, just getting used to the modeling functions of Blender. So it's just a simple front weight, and conveniently Deere provided a side picture for us to trace, as well as all of your product dimensions here. First thing we're going to do, A, X, delete everything in the scene, start off from a blank slate. We're going to press 7 to go into top view. We're going to go Shift A, image, and we're going to choose a reference image. And here we can go, I have got a little project folder set up, so we're going to go to where we save that side image from. We're just going to import that. Second thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to your scene here. It's this little cone with a sphere and a light here, and we're going to go units, metric, and we're going to change it to imperial and change the length to inches, because that's what Deere provides on their website. Next we're going to go Shift A to add. We're going to go mesh. We're going to add a cube. Press N, and then under here an item you should see a whole list of stuff. Dimensions is the key thing we're going to be looking at here, though. We're going to go back to Deere's website, and here it'll provide all your dimensions. So it looks like it should be 2 inches on the Z axis. It should be 18.6 in the width. So we'll just make that our X dimension, 18.6, and then it should be 20.7 inches in the length, 20.7. So now we have our weight, and it looks like I have these reversed, so I'm just gonna flip these. And then we're just going to go into wireframe, and the reason I chose a reference image before, actually, I should probably mention this, is because when you, whether you're in wireframe mode or not, it'll allow you to see the corners of your mesh while also still displaying this image. Because if I were to just go Shift A, image, and then mesh plane, and then just choose that image, yeah, it'd show up in material preview here, it'd all be there, but when you go to wireframe, it's just a regular plane with that texture applied. So that's why I like to Okay, now that we're done with the modeling phase, at least for the most part, what we can do now is I can go ahead and double check the sizes that Deere has provided on the website. So again, the height should be 2 inches, which, well, we got that. Now we got that. Width should be 18.6, and then the length should be 20.7. Okay, now that we've got our size finalized and we've got all of our edges set to what we want it to be, we can just go tries to quads, just double check that. And so far we're doing okay on poly, maybe a bit high for my liking and for definitely Giant's liking, but you know what, whatever. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bake a normal map. If you have all your detail on the model like I do, and you don't have any like emblems or anything that isn't 3D on there, what you do is you just duplicate the mesh, go high poly, low poly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bevel normal map. So I'll just call this JD weight. Make something not retina burning white. I think what I can actually, you know what? Let's use the Giant's editor materials. So here's just calibrated paint mat. We'll just load. Color will go John Deere. Green, and we'll just do all of this. Apply, shading. Okay, it's only 2 metallics, that's a good point. There. Okay, now that we get that, now we can create our normal map. So if I just want to go image, new, we're going to call this weight underscore normal. I'm going to set this to 2048. No alpha, new image. Set this to non-color, and we're going to go Shift A, and we're going to go bevel. So now we're just going to connect that to normal, and we're going to set the radius to 0.005. With this selected now, we can go set this to cycles. I usually set mine to GPU because I get a faster GPU than my CPU. I think most people do. We're going to set the bake type to normal. Here we're going to make sure it's set to clear image. I'll set the margin to 0. Make sure there's no room for error. Now before we hit bake, we're going to make sure this is all unwrapped, because if we try and bake that, it's going to look ugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this into 2 pieces. Since both sides are similar, hide that for now. We're just going to go AU, and we're going to go unwrap Smart UV project, or project, I think it's project. Set that to 60, and then set the island margin 0.01. We're going to unwrap. Nice little UV there. Now we can unhide this, join that back. Actually, hold on, before we do, we're just going to link UVs. didn't quite work. So we're just gonna go Shift D, Object Mirror, Z Global. We go Alt N, flip, because when you apply the rotation scale on it, it'll flip it inside out for whatever reason. Not sure why, but it does. So I always try and do that. Now that we've got our UV map made, both sides are going to be the same texture. Get a shading, and then now we can just go ahead and hit bake. Just hold on. Now we hit bake. Okay, once it's done baking, you should have a nice little normal map here. If you'll take a look, it'll show that we have that is caused by one face touching another face or just being on top of it, like so here. And that will interfere with your baking, so what we can do now is we can just delete those. Because I'm an idiot and forgot to do it beforehand. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at what's over here. Nothing. Okay. Oh, that was the other one. Okay, never mind. Alright, now we can go ahead and bake again. And that should have fixed that. So now you got a nice clean normal map. So we're going to disconnect this. We're going to go normal map. Going to connect this. And now we get a nice beveled normal map that looks, well, pretty good, honestly. No imperfections. It's all there. So we're going to save this quick. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to export. This is an FBX. Limit to selected objects if you just want one or the only objects in the scene exported. And then we're going to save this normal map as weight_normal. And then in Adobe Substance Painter, we can go ahead and fire that up. Once we're in, go File, New. I would recommend getting the Vertex Design FS25 Substance files. They honestly did an amazing job, and I use them for everything. It turns out amazing when you use them. So next we're going to import baked maps. We're going to find our folder here, weight_normal, get that selected, and then we're going to import our FBX. Hit OK. Now that we got our weight in here and it looks pretty good, we're going to go texture set settings, and we're going to select normal map, normal. Now the weight_normal selected there, we can go mode, bake mesh maps. We got our normal preloaded, so we don't have to bake that. So we're just going to bake these four. So these are just the settings I use. Generate from normal map, that's important if you have one. If you don't, that's when you use generate from mesh. But since we don't have that, since we have a normal map, we're not going to worry about that. And that we're going to skip over position. There's not much to screw around with there, and then we're going to edit that. Common settings, I like to bake in 8192, because then you can bake in a higher scale, but then when you export the textures, you can export it as 2048, less loss rather than if you bake in 2048 and there's a lot more pixels. So we're just going to go bake. Okay, now when we return to painting mode, we're going to have some shadows, maybe some different levels of detail in some models, I guess, where the ambient occlusion lights hit. We're going to go Smart Materials. We're going to find our Vertex Design Vehicle Base Map. We're going to apply that. Underneath Layers, we can go down to our dirt layer. We're going to start with that. Click Dirt. Restore defaults. Now all of our dirt's going to start showing up in the darker areas or some of the corners and crevices. Now if we load this into Giants Editor right now, it's not going to look great. In fact, it's going to look terrible, because that's a lot of dirt, and what shows up in here is a lot different than what shows up in GE. So what I like to do is I like to set this to 0.35, and I will set the grunge amount to 0.75, and then we can change with the scale of the grunge and whatever, make the dirt look a lot more frequent here. And if we want, I'm going to just bump this up to 0.4. We can just go ahead and make it look like that there. That looks a lot better. And then for our wear layer, just pretty much do the same thing. With that normal map, it's going to generate wear all along the beveled edges that we had here. And so I'm just going to go turn the wear level down quite a bit, actually. I'm just going to go to 0.25. And then we're going to go grunge amount. We're going to increase this a lot. Can increase the scale or decrease the scale however you please. I'm going to decrease it, so it looks something like that. And then that's going to look a lot different in GE as well. So just FYI. Now that we've got that all selected and we got all our materials applied, we're going to go File, Export Textures. We're going to change this to our export preset, so our FS25 vehicle VMask. And size, we're going to go 2048, because remember we baked in 8192, but we want to export as 2048. We're going to change our file here so we export to where we want it. just going to go export. We have this normal map, and when we have this normal map, it's the same thing. You can delete that one. We want our Blender render, and then we're just going to go open with paint.net. We're going to go File, Save As, and we're going to go DDS. In here, we're going to make sure it's set to DXT1. DXT1 is used for normal maps, spec maps, anything that doesn't use alpha. Anything that has an alpha, so like a diffuse texture or decals, that'll be DXT5 right here. And then DXT3 is used for store, like brand images. So we're going to go ahead and save that. We're going to do the same here with the calibrated, or with a VMask. We're going to go Save As. We're going to name this to weight_VMask. Okay. We're going to delete the old PNGs. And then back in Blender, we're going to go to our Giants Editor exporter here. We're going to go Export. We're going to change the file path to here. We're going to rename this to an i3D. Set i3D file and export selected. Now, in our i3D, before we open it, we're going to go right click Visual Studio Code. And something that always applies if you export normally is an emission. It sets the emission to white default. If you set it to black, it won't apply a default emissive texture when exporting into Giants Editor. But if you do and you have a lot and you just forgot it, I'd just like to go delete that. Now, if we load it up in GE, it won't be like bright white, and it'll have your material that you export it with. Now under here, we can go ahead and apply our weight_normal DDS and our gloss map, and we just use a default white texture provided by Giants. Data shared default white right here, or white diffuse. And just like that, you have officially fully modeled and given textures to your model. Just double check to what the dirt looks like and everything will look like in a game. We can go to Vehicle Visuals Control, and we can just slowly walk through the dirt and just slowly amp up the scratches. So when done, it'll look something like this. Doesn't that look great? Maybe. I don't know. You be the judge. I think it does personally. But yeah, that's essentially how you go from like basic cube and Blender to a full-fledged model with normal maps, spec maps, and fully in GE.